We are building a model railway, and now we are slowly starting with the landscaping. I have organized a little bit, because so far we were still on my tabletop. But now, of course, the system should slowly start to take shape. And I've organized something which I'll show you briefly into the camera here. This is from company Auhagen. They've built a baseboard system here where you can shape tables. And I'll show that again briefly in large size here with me with such a huge plate. You see, there are holes drilled in the front side. I'm pushing this forward a bit more so you can see it. It's extremely light, what we have here. So now I can nicely grasp here with 2 hands, and on these mounted or on these pre-drilled squares, you can then mount further such plates. Are nice and stable, and then you can especially screw the table legs on at the bottom. I once brought a table leg here, and then we can later put our system on the floor, adjust the height here again, and accordingly we don't have to go to the carpenter now, but can get this here as a finished system already. Here you can see it again. This is what it looks like. So from Auhagen there are such plates, there are all sorts of modules, there are also corner modules, in case you want to build around the corner, then you can also get something there again. So, I can definitely recommend that you meticulously consider what should my investment actually be based on. Isn't that so? Should that be on the carpet? Do I put them away again in the evening or next morning after a beautiful night spent playing? Or do I have them on a plate, in the attic, basement or hobby cellar? If this is about building a nice system, then consider that here, for example. What's great about this topic is its modularity. That means, considering a track now, ending on one side, I can think about expanding my layout or using modular boxes. This way, I build dioramas and the track continues. Then, meeting friends, we might build different modules together. One might build a bit more modern, the next has a fairground ride, another a maintenance depot, then there's someone with a beautiful station. And then, you can also meet up with module boxes. Beautiful extension modules exist. The first tracks are already laid out, and I have bought a lot, including from dealers and construction sets, for example. I have procured little houses, I have procured people, so little figures, lighting, everything possible, and I have seen one more. I also found it very practical. Look over here, a spiral track. If you want to go upstairs, you can see here, you also have something with which you can build upwards. I'll quickly turn this around so you see the back. We can build a helix like that. Then, you can build 2 stories high, for instance, creating a small hidden shadow station below and above it, wump, 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 on the 2nd level. Then it continues. A nice photo shows a potential facility, complete and descending on the right, much like a roller coaster. Not quite a roller coaster, because the train here is on a nice normal incline, so it doesn't derail and doesn't have to struggle up there, and the engines stay nice. So, there are indeed such things in there. And what's particularly practical is that there are also such boards included, and we might actually utilize them in the forthcoming days, and we'll simply make the tracks on them here, because we don't have to ascend 3 stories high right away. But to get a bit higher here, for example, we could already take advantage of such pre-cut construction boards, or we could opt for a comprehensive construction set from the company Heki, for instance. Then, you can either craft walls or stones yourself with it, or you can also intricately etch concrete floors here, for example. You can make great walls with that, so that would be a possibility too. Speaking of walls, I have something else with me. Look here, it indeed exists too. It's actually called stone art, comes from the Vollmer company. And they are already building such panels, for example. It then looks a bit like cobblestone. And in terms of the material, it is extremely three-dimensional. So it not only feels that way, but it also looks that way. And that can also be taken, for example. Then you can make your own paving slabs here. So a whole lot of inspiration, what we can actually find here now. What else did I bring along? Lighting. Oh, here, look, I actually found another little house. That matches well with our construction pack. So if we take this one, the construction site pack from Märklin. What's the best fit for a construction site? I thought to myself. And there we have one. Here's a semi-finished house from Fähler. So this is not quite finished yet. And to make it a bit faster here with the crafting, I've already built it for you. Or rather, half finished. That's how it looks. Our half-finished house. We can now quickly move it to the other side. then you'll see that better. We can, for example, also virtually add that into the system now, and we need to get up a bit. You can see it, I believe, very nicely here in the photo, yes. They didn't think it would go down earthily with the stairs up here, yes, then down there. Where is the staircase? Here she is, yes. You have to install them a bit more here, and then one could bury a half-finished little house somewhere nice already. Well, maybe we'll incorporate that into our facility. What else did I bring along? I have brought a garage, a storage hall, also from Auhagen, so from the same company that made this substructure set. Maybe we'll add some industry here, like a place set up with many turnouts for trains to shunt back and forth, and a small construction site next to it. Maybe there's an engine shed for our beautiful steam locomotive from the second starter pack to be placed. Look, we have a beautiful steam locomotive with us, and it can also stand around on a modern facility, maybe in a sort of maintenance depot, kind of like a museum setup. Then it could also be accommodated there. So that would be a possibility as well. And of course, there must be a bit of light on such a depot so that people can see something. I also brought a light with me, in this case from the company Bush, who manufacture it. Very beautiful wooden mast light, which of course fits wonderfully next to a factory hall here on the side. Then you can also build it right away. Yes, and if you just want to have fun, there are also funny characters they don't always have to match, so you can also make a funny gag. For example, I actually found a penguin here. Take a look. Indeed, a little penguin is included. Here you can see the little penguin, or here again, a little polar bear on a small ice floe is also there. There are totally funny characters, all sorts of things that you can organize for yourselves. But I also bought quite a few construction workers and track construction workers who can then, accordingly, be placed on the layout again. So, what else do we need? I have organized trestles, ones like these, so that we can later also end the track somewhere for our system. And I have also carefully and meticulously organized something, indeed, namely, a decoupling track with the perfectly matching light for it. Decoupling the track effectively means that our wagons can be disconnected here, and then we can actually send our freight wagon elsewhere. And there is the perfectly matching lantern to go with it. Whenever it is uncoupled, then the light blinks here on this particular light pole. Yes, indeed, with that, we are now actually quite well equipped and can eagerly start building a bit already. Now I have to clear some space on the system first, but that doesn't matter, as I just briefly put the things aside here. We'll bring them back in later. There's a bit hanging here on my pegboard behind me, and arrange the things a bit as inspiration behind me, so you can take a closer look. Now comes the big question. What should the system look like? What track plan are we making? Of course, there are no limits to creativity. There is simply only a space limit. So what can you build on such a size? These are now here. What is this here? About a meter? Gauge it. What have I taken here now? These are now, so this is 1 meter, 46 meters, 47 times strange measure 98.
1 Meter 46, Meter 47 mal komisches Maß 98 hat aber einen Grund wahrscheinlich.
Is probably very precisely aligned with the dimensions of a model railway, because we can look at how big such an oval would be. So, we have a starter pack, and now we can first see what's actually going on with this board. What can we do? And I said, I want to build a bit more of a playground this time. I would like us to have a bit more shunting operations on the facility so the trains can run a bit more. I don't just want it to go around in circles, but I want one to be able to lose oneself in small details here and do a bit with that. So, now let's start simple and first build a circle from several tracks, or rather, I'll first build myself a semicircle so I already know where I am. So, indeed we have this here, or rather, a circle segmented into 4 parts. And then we put it there. I always like to build in such a way that there is still a bit of space left, even to the edge. So if this goes up to the edge, I don't find that so nice. Then there's no chance, in terms of landscape, to build a nice railway embankment or anything of that sort. Then theoretically, I could continue down here with the tracks. Then we would have the smallest thing that could possibly work. So, and then, that would indeed be the one possibility. One could do that, but I don't want to, because we had something quite nice included in our starter pack, namely these curved turnouts, which I had already shown you last time. Those were the curved turnouts, included in the large ICE 2 starter pack. I've also put those for you again here on the side. Look here, in the starter pack, there are these curved turnouts here on the side. And with these curved turnouts, we can build this oval in a completely different way. So, we can manage a bit of dual-track railway operation or a bit of shunting, depending on how we set the turnouts right now. Would mean I can work here at the front with a double-track track. So, in order to get in there as early as possible, I'm putting them over here to the side already. Then I have my first turnout there, and on the other side I'm putting my turnout here. And then I'll come around. Now, I'm actually building this ECE starter kit. From the side, let's quickly see what comes next. You can see it quite well here. So, I would have to make 1, 2 curves, round tracks down here now. And once again, 1, 2. So now I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 round tracks. And I'm just going to leisurely settle down right next to it for a brief moment. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 I had somewhere else. Where have they gone? Oh, I actually retrieved another one here from my siding on the side, just a moment ago. Then, let's swiftly get this out of the way here already. Then, I have successfully won another one. Then, the power is already securely connected to the system here. So now I need another one. And then, I actually almost managed to come around the corner by carefully attaching this component right here. And then, securely fastening it over there. So now, I can already play a bit of a double track on a very tight space through these curved turnouts quite effectively. If I were to take a straight turnout here now, then I would come out here on the side, and then I would need much more space in width. So I can already play with it like this here. I'm still missing such a track. Where do I have another one? There is one more. Exactly. This is that radius 1. So a curve with a radius of 1. We could also build a bit bigger. With a larger radius, we indeed would need more space. So, I've mentioned wanting to enjoy some gaming activity with more. That means I could now go to the side and build a siding here. I'll just do it. If I take another curved turnout, I could now, for example, remove this track here. On the side, here, on the side, I now carefully remove a radius 1 track and thoughtfully place a curved turnout here. And then, for example, I smoothly come out on the side here, just as intended. I'll show that from above, then you can see it here. Here, for example, would be siding on the side. So now, I could consider whether I should take, for example, a radius 2 track. So, there are the curves, the round tracks in a tight radius and also in a wider radius. Then, you can see, right here I have a smaller, circular track. And now, I'm taking a larger round track and just placing it here. And then, I can, for example, come out parallel right here. Now I would already be here at the now I could theoretically take a second radius double track and could try to get around my layout on 2 tracks completely, which would even work here because I would even have space on the layout up here. So I could completely build a 2-lane circle here, and with that, for example, I could also let 2 trains run on a layout without them getting in each other's way. And from time to time they stop at the station, and then they can also turn out between inside and outside. That could indeed look very, very nice. Or as I say, I might do it a bit differently and first construct a long track here, for example, and then venture a bit into nature, so to speak, to get a bit further away, and after that, build a siding right here at the front. I could do that too. Haven't decided yet. I'll put it down now so it looks relatively geometric. And the more geometric, the better the driving traits, of course. But it also looks a bit dull. So, now let's make this a bit wider. Because we do have a little space, and let's see what else we could do in between. I'd like to use this room in the middle. I want a maintenance depot here, a construction site, or a locomotive shed for my steam locomotive or construction train to park. And that's precisely why I want to make better use of this area now. Let's take a look at what we can do first. The very first thing we can do is, indeed, we can strategically place a turnout right here. Then we come in here, moving from the inside to the inside. I could do that now, for example. But then I can't get from inside there to outside there anymore because there is nothing more in front. So, I could, for instance, utilize my double slip turnout here, should the situation necessitate it. Could put that there now. Then you see, it will get a bit tight on the side here because I need my curve there and such a track does not exist. But I could indeed do this right now, for example. I could easily put a turnout down here on the side and could try to go up right away without hesitation. So, and now I have already built a quite fascinating track layout. Now I could actually drive from the outer track to the inside and straight into my depot seamlessly. However, I can also drive out of my depot onto this track. So I can drive on the right lane, on the left, however I want, and can turn out back and forth. That could be one option. But I can also drive in here through the turnout, up here on the side. I can leave a train waiting here. The second train comes in and can drive back onto the track up there. For example, for the game operation, I can precisely navigate back and forth here with 2 or 3 moves. Now I just have to make sure that I fill this gap here, and this gap is as big as a 172 track. Look, this is precisely the gap. Quite similar to the one found in the 172 track, isn't it? So, a turnout is as wide as a 188 gauge track. I'll show that again quickly. You can see it nicely from above. Normally, a turnout is essentially a long piece of track. However, if you then reconnect a turnout that goes a bit beyond, approximately about a finger's width, then you would need a 172 track piece right here. These 172, 188, where do the names originate? They're at the back. Turning the track, you can see here are these numbers on the side. And precisely these numbers, we can effortlessly read them off and then seamlessly install them there. So, I'll show it again from the very top. So now we have our C-track properly and securely installed right here. So, that would indeed look quite good. And now, I would need a short track on the side here once again, so that everything runs smoothly together once more. So, it would also work nicely here with the double slip turnout, which I have already shown in a last video how to digitize it with a turnout decoder. So, now it's a bit cramped in here, so if I need a siding there now, then I would have to drive in very tightly here, and I might want to do something else. Maybe I have a spare turnout left and want to make a really attractive, nice engine shed here. I wish to drive in here into the side. Yes, right here. One could also imagine that now. But it's getting a bit cramped here. I won't be able to do that. Now I could still make this a bit wider here, because I still have space on my layout. Back there, it's getting a bit tight, but up front, to the right, there's still a bit of space available, and that's about as much space as, for example, a 188 track again, such a long one indeed. What I actually wouldn't need, because I actually need a short one here again to connect on the side. But here it actually doesn't matter much, because I don't have to be flush with anything here anymore. It doesn't have to be connected here. Here I remain separated. A siding goes here. Now, for example, I can do the following. I'll put a long track here now. I just need to remember. Here is a long one, a short one, a long one. So long, short, long. Because I will indeed need that up there again. I then also need long, short, long up here. So I have to prepare that in advance. I can do that on the occasion so that I can be back in geometry properly later. So long, short and long I had said, right? Then I'm still missing a long one, actually. See, I'll take that from down there for now. Put it in here. So long, short and long. And now I'm just going to securely attach this right up here already. You can still get there very, very easily indeed. And you can still move all that well. So right up front here as well indeed. So indeed. Good. That already looks quite decent indeed. And you can get around quite well there, thanks to the track geometry's design. That doesn't fit into the camera frame right now, but you can imagine it. I'll wait, then one can picture it nicely right away. Now I also managed to get around quite nicely here with my track and can comfortably walk parallel to this track once again. I once took a curve here. This is in fact a bit of a different track than a classic round rail. Take a look at this. This is a completely normal round rail with a radius of 1 that you see here. And this one is a tad different in terms of radius. This one is a bit tighter indeed. You might not see it at first glance, but it's a bit tighter. If I attach this here, then it doesn't continue in parallel. I'm planning to just put these down wrong on purpose now. Then you see that, right? Is something wrong? True, exactly. This wouldn't end up parallel now. That's too far. It's almost invisible. It looks almost right, but it would end up wrong anyway. That's why we're taking these. And this track is completely correct. Now we are here in parallel, and now we can, for example, put a buffer stop on here. A rammer would go on it, and a good rammer would go on it too. Now we have enough distance here for a building or for an embankment. We can build upwards. But I can also say maybe we still have a little bit of space, then we'll buy a very small mini track. And then we can say, for example, we'll do this over to the side. They don't all have to be the same length. Maybe it's totally boring when they are so uniform. So we make this a bit longer and we make this a bit shorter. Could also, we say, well, this is too long here. Let's just take one of the mini tracks out and place it here, and then we can position the other one. I've now taken 2 mini tracks of different lengths, put them in there, then it's not so uniform. But it also appears nicer if we happen to have it here now. So, now we have ample space here for 2 lengthy tracks, and 1 long track can also be divided into 2 mini tracks, providing versatility. These are then these here, these lengths. That is exactly 94 millimeters. Hold it right here into the camera for a moment. This is indeed a very, very short track. That is precisely half as long as a long track. And theoretically, I can take 2 of those. Why? Because they are available in the special length. That is, for example, exactly as long as a... No, wrong. I would have thought like a buffer stop. No, it is not. But that is, for instance, precisely as long as one of these uncoupling tracks that I showed you earlier. So, if I desire to uncouple my train, for example, utilizing such an uncoupling track, then indeed this would be the correct length. So, if I connect the 2 in series, then essentially the 2 are just as long as one long piece, measuring exactly 18.8 centimeters. And we're going to do that now. We'll take this to one place over here. And the uncoupling track. I have previously unpacked one there and also supplied it with a lantern. So, this is how it looks. That's exactly what it looks like. And this track, for example, I can use to uncouple a wagon precisely. Then the car drives over it, and then this mechanism ascends, and then the cars are uncoupled. And I can now, for example, place it on this side, and after my track back there, 188, long, back there on the side, I just need 2 pieces here again that together are precisely as long as this one here. And now I can incorporate this here very nicely. Now I need a long one. And there we have prepared something in the last episodes. In fact, we built a signal, namely a nice driver's signal, a main one. Here, the wing signal. And I had already put that on such a track from the last time. We can undo that later as well, or replace it with a light signal. That was a long track just now. That means I can now just put together the things I prepared in the last YouTube videos. And now, I have crafted a pretty chic and at first glance, quite appealing track layout. So with that, I believe one can already imagine a very nice play area now. It would mean, for instance, the train could originate from this point, perhaps from the side, and then it could seamlessly transition into the inner circle located here. Could either choose to stay here at the station, or could uncouple a car right here, or even drive out again without its little wagons. Then, the locomotive can go around once, can turn out to the outer track, and can perhaps wait here, right here at this particular spot. Another locomotive might start from here, also goes around this circle again, comes back here and picks up the uncoupled car, then continues with the car, goes back onto the inner circle, might stop here, the other locomotive continues on, then the locomotive could enter here and could, for example, change tracks here at the front in the storage area. Of course, you're right to say, wait a minute, Michael, you had a second coupling track. Isn't it smarter to place the coupling track into the classification yard? Then, the locomotive can back in with the car, uncouple the car, and then drive out again without the car. Something like that would actually work too. Then I just have to eliminate this track here and can then say, well, of course the idea would indeed be nice there too. And then, for instance, I could also make use of my coupling track right here. And then, that would indeed be a quite cool little thing to initiate the trains here. Now the only question is, where do I apply that? Because the car has to fit on the track at the back, of course. Accordingly, I need more space in the back. In that case, I'd just leave enough space so a car can stand at the back. That would be about that long. And the locomotive must also be able to reverse out. That means this here would already be, yes, one would have to consider. So it would certainly work in some way, I believe. Then I would almost find it nicer to connect that with the short track here indeed. But that obviously depends a lot on your wagon. So if we take these two cars here, for example, just as an example.
Now, if I'd needed such a clutch item.
Have now nicely tangled up exactly. So now we have two little carts. The one is naturally very nicely short. He could decouple wonderfully here, the one we have here. The other one is too long, for example. He couldn't decouple properly here. That's just the question of how you want to rig that up at your place now. So that would be too short now, but that could also be made nice here at this point. These are all things, little things, that can of course still be taken into account in the planning now. But if it's later on, and then maybe you've even bolted down the tracks, then it gets a bit tricky. And that was the reason why I planned my coupling track here, because here I naturally have enough space to get to the back with this curve. And I also have a little space in front over the turnout. It's not perfect now, but I believe model railroading is always a bit of a compromise between what is particularly realistic and what I can fit in my layout at home in terms of space. That's why I've now determined to put the uncoupling track here. Then indeed, a car or a locomotive without cars can also leave the station. So, we'll clean this up again. We still have one left for later, in case we want to tinker with one after all. Okay, so it remains for now. Our coupling track is here at the front of the station. At the back is the buffer stop, and this is where the party essentially ends, for the moment. Yes, I can also put it back there. Let me place it here on the little cart, then that's tidied up. And that one too. So, now I can of course continue back there at this point and ask, what else is happening here? For example, I could say I'm pushing it forward a bit and might also have room for a small buffer stop back there. And can also park a locomotive back there again. Then this one is still indeed well tidied up here. And you see, I'm not going to the edge again. I still want a bit of space for a landscape photo. That means I could indeed go up here. So, I still have enough space at the front of the facility to have enough room for landscaping. Because if I build to the edge, I'll lose the grass, the embankment, and the ability to plant bushes here. And there are also nice things that can be placed later on. For example, what else have I brought here? Big trees still on the side, needing to stand somewhere. If a little tree no longer has space, because there's no room for another tree, then the landscape won't be as pretty. So, in that respect, leave more space than too little. We cooled aside the two trees, we need them at the end. So, yes, and now I can actually get started and can first thoroughly test my system in its function. The more often I do this, the more certain it becomes, of course, later on, when it is screwed, glued, ballasted and plastered, that my trains will indeed run correctly. That means, first of all, a very nice phase is coming up for you on the premises, namely, fun playing in the shell construction. Therefore, it is essential to establish a connection with the mobile station, and one takes a locomotive to first experiment with how everything works. I'll now take the exquisitely beautiful little steam locomotive from this detailed freight train set of Era 3 and carefully put it right here, then turn on my charming little railway and wait just a brief moment until it's seamlessly connected. Have I connected it? I believe so. Let's let them recognize each other briefly. Now I can do a few test runs here with my system. Try out all the turnouts. Do they work at that spot? Is the slope too steep? Is it too low? And can just go ahead and take my locomotive for a few small laps and just drive around here over all the tracks for a bit, including over the uncoupling track. That works very well, exactly. Then she continues on her way, my little locomotive. And I can see, does it manage on this piece of track? Aha! Now she's moving outward. Here we see, for example, I actually took some ridiculous track that came out of the box, a bit dirty. I might have to exchange that. I did something silly here. I took out a few old tracks from the boxes that I still had left. Then we'll just make sure that something like this doesn't happen, because you obviously only want to use the best tracks. So if you have something used or like that, then it might be they are sometimes a bit worn out and accordingly prefer to do a few test drives to make sure everything works. So, once again, we've gone over this. Now, it successfully worked. There was just a bit of dust on it, nothing more. Now we can drive inside here. and can test if it can navigate around there, the locomotive. So, outward, from outside back inward, and maybe inside back again. Then we can maneuver back and forth with our hands for now. Yes, and now you have actually used these starter packs and just constructed what was already in the packs with a bit of accessories, but with lots of fun. So, outwardly, that indeed worked quite well. And then, she eventually arrived there, just as expected. Now, think about what's next. In previous episodes, we had digitized turnouts to some extent. So here I remember I had already used a digital turnout drive and had also already supplied the turnout with a decoder. Exactly, it's turnouting already. That means I can turn out this turnout. Then I had the second turnout already equipped with a digital drive up here. And I had already supplied the signal with a decoder. They are all just a bit confused by the addresses because the signal is on the same address as the turnout. But that's okay, you can try it again. The double slip turnout. It also already has an electric turnout drive and a digital decoder, adding to its functionality. So I still have 1, 2, 3 turnouts back there that are somewhat scattered, which I could also efficiently wire up. And there, for example, I could indeed do the following if I don't wish to use turnout decoder installations, like these here, or those over there. So I need the drives anyway. But I can now either use these digital decoders you can see here. Then I have that one, I can install it directly under the turnout. Or I take something like this, which is a so-called turnout multi-decoder, meaning if I have many turnouts, I can save a bit of money by connecting several turnouts, namely 4, to one, such an M83. And then, of course, I can build quite differently on the layout. I'll put it this way, there's a big difference between the two, which is practical. I'd recommend this to anyone into carpet racing. Those who often set up and break down, seeking minimal cable clutter, will find this ideal. Knock on wood? Yes, you can build something under the system because you can simply screw this decoder under the system, and if you now get 2 such decoders, then you can connect up to 8 turnouts here. And the next good news is, with this decoder, with this M83, you can also digitally turn out this uncoupling track here. That means, instead of a turnout, you can connect such an article here directly, so these 2 cables, the blue and the yellow, can also be connected directly to the M83. It would indeed mean we now have such a decoder here on the system or strategically positioned below the board and can actually connect 1, 2, 3, 4 turnouts, so 1, 2, 3 plus our uncoupling track, and the other 3 already have the turnout decoder from last time, from the previous YouTube videos. That means I will now connect and tinker with it in the next few days and will simply connect the remaining 1, 2, 3 turnouts plus this uncoupling track here. Otherwise, it works like these digital decoders. They also have their address, which can be reset via a small DIP turnout. And then, you can also seamlessly turn out them digitally with the mobile station, just like I just did with the signal here, that I simply opted to turn out it directly via the mobile station itself. So it's a lot of fun. Nevertheless, I still need something like that here, namely a point machine. I just have to install it again here in the turnouts. That means, even there, such a drive must indeed be installed under such a turnout. And I firmly believe I have already prepared that. I'll just take a look under the turnout to see how far I've progressed. Fat chance, he did nothing. Prepared nothing. I simply need to make my way back to the turnout now, and then I must install another turnout drive down here, without delay. That would be one of the next steps that could be taken now. So, starting with the sequence, setting up a test placement, test drive, and if all that goes well, if it all feels good, just enjoy it for now. So don't build too quickly. Don't just cover everything with plaster saying it must finish now, we've 2 weeks left. No, that's a matter requiring a lot of patience. I explain this on YouTube a bit faster from one episode to the next, but take your time. This is a beautiful phase that is coming now. Playing with the system, experimenting, could it run like this, or do I put in another turnout here and then drive inside again? Or maybe I'll install a 3-way turnout somewhere else to go somewhere else. Also, which signal fits where? For example, we see here these signals need space. That means if I go too close to the edge, I might not have space for my signal later. Or does the signal look nice in the curve? Do I even want that there? Do I have space for a large train to maneuver here? Try this out at this stage. It's a lot of fun. And honestly, you already have a very nice game layout in front of you. That means we can start working on things in the next episodes and also begin with the landscaping, the design. Enjoy watching. See you then.